with conflicts of interest and ethical lapses as far as the eye could see. We insisted on a rigorous vetting process to bring to light what proved to be, in many cases, incompetent, unqualified, and out-of-touch nominees. Exhibit A, Betsy DeVos. She was exactly the kind of right-wing billionaire that we knew would work for special interests rather than for students and teachers. And that's been this administration's MO, selling out the American people on behalf of powerful special interests. And no more than anywhere in this tax bill are they selling out America, taking the burden off people like Secretary DeVos, a multi-billionaire, and all the other swamp cabinet, and putting it on the backs of the middle class and those struggling to get to the middle class. It's backward. The same president who campaigned as a populist to save Medicare and Medicaid, drain the swamp, is leading the charge to cut those programs, Medicare and Medicaid, so that he can line the pockets of his friends like Betsy DeVos and the other billionaires in the cabinet. According to this new report from Neera and her team at CAP, guess what? Secretary DeVos, poor thing, stands to get between $3 and $5 million a year in new tax breaks under the Republican plan. That's just from pass-through income. She'll get more. The amount in tax breaks DeVos would get through pass-throughs would cover 2,000 kids on Medicaid. Which chart is that? Let's see. There it is.
There it is.
Or 318,587 people on Medicare. Betsy DeVos, who's more important? Betsy DeVos or 318,000 elderly people who need Medicare? Well, Donald Trump thinks Betsy DeVos is, and his tax bill shows it. And if you include Secretaries Mnuchin and Ross and Tillerson and McMahon, multimillionaires and billionaires all, when you repeal the estate tax, they get $3.5 billion. Those four people get $3.5 billion in the estate tax as a break. What is going on here? What is going on here? This is so far away from what the American people want. It's appalling. Today begins the process, when we go to the floor and hear, of shining the light of truth on this ugly tax bill. Our Republican friends are trying to hide it. They don't want to discuss what's in the bill. You ever hear them talk about cutting Medicare or Medicaid? You ever hear of them talking about tax breaks for the wealthiest people in America? They don't mention it. They don't want people to know. But today, through the amendment process and through events that you will see like this one over and over again, we are shining the light of truth on this bill. And the disinfectant of sunlight will turn the American people against this bill. They're already against it. 58%, according to a CBS poll, think it benefits the wealthy. 58, only 18% think it benefits the middle class. And when we finish our search for truth and our spotlight on their bill, the numbers will get even worse for them. So my prediction, just what happened with health care is going to happen with their tax bill. The American people learned over a period of months, in part through efforts of people like those standing here, how bad this bill was, and they turned against it. And then the Republicans couldn't pass it. Same thing is going to happen here. The more they learn about this bill, the more they see it helps the Betsy DeVos's and the other billionaires of the cabinet and hurts middle-class people, the more they're going to hate this bill. Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you. You got it?
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Leader. It is good to be here today. So thank you to Neera Tanden and to Leader Schumer. The Republicans have unveiled their tax proposal, and the details are gruesome. Millions of working families would see their taxes go up. The top 1% would get tax breaks worth an average of $130,000, and the top 0.1% would get tax breaks worth an average of about $750,000. And just to underline how unfair that is, while millions of middle-class people would pay more, it would take the average American 2 years to earn just as much as the tax break the top 1% would get with the stroke of Donald Trump's pen. And they would have to work for 10 years to earn as much as the tax break for the top 0.1%. Trump's tax plan is simple. The rich get richer and everyone else gets left behind. It is just plain immoral at a time when the top 1% are already getting richer and richer, and working families are scraping to pay for housing and schools and child care. It is just plain immoral to slash taxes for the rich while sticking it to everyone else. So why is the Trump administration proposing this immoral plan that will explode the deficit and not grow the economy? Because the plan is very, very good for the super rich members of the Trump administration. So according to this new report from the Center for American Progress, by repealing the estate tax, the Republican tax plan will save members of the Trump cabinet an estimated $3.5 billion. That's more than $1 billion in savings for Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. That's more than $1/3 billion in savings for Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, and more than $250 million in savings for Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Remember, the estate tax only applies to people who have more than $5 million. This tax break, by definition, only helps the wealthiest people in this country. Even Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin admitted as much yesterday. Imagine what we could do with $3.5 billion that the Republican tax plan wants to give away to the Trump cabinet. We could fix roads. We could fund medical research. We could reduce student loan burdens. And what about the pass-through tax change? Republicans claim that that helps small business owners, but 86% of small business owners get no help at all from this proposal. But boy, does it help the rich. Betsy DeVos made a minimum of $20 million last year in pass-through income from her stake in Amway. The Republican plan would save her at least $3 million every year with its new pass-through cap. This is about who government works for. Democrats believe that government should work for working families, not for gazillionaires like Betsy DeVos or other members of the Trump cabinet who already have it made. If the Republicans are going to press forward with their immoral tax proposal, then we will fight them every step of the way. Thank you. Neera, up to you.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here with two champions for the middle class and struggling Americans. And just need to say that we're really proud of this report that the Center for American Progress put forward. Seth Hanlon, who's here, authored the report. We've gone over the details. I'll just say this. The $3.5 billion figure is from the estate tax. We know individual amounts from the pass-through tax. But we are talking billions of dollars going to people in government who were supposed to be there to serve us. If you really step back, what seems to be happening with the Trump administration is that entering service into the Trump administration makes this really a for-profit exercise for the administration. They basically came up with a tax plan that benefits Trump himself and his cabinet. It's a windfall for almost the entire cabinet. So I want to really thank the members who are here today, but most importantly, as we go through the next days, weeks, and months, Senator Schumer is right. The more people know about this tax plan and recognize that it really is in the service of the wealthy and well-connected and the people who are looking to the government to really be a benefit for themselves, not a benefit to the people, a benefit to themselves. I think people will rise up as they did in the healthcare plan and stop it in its tracks. Thank you.
We're ready for your questions. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Senator Warren, you haven't said, I haven't heard you say much. What do you think about the state and local tax deduction piece of the elimination of that in the GOP plan? It's something that could potentially hurt your constituents back in Massachusetts.
Yes, it would hurt my constituents, and it would hurt everybody in this country who's making investments at the state and local level to try to build a future, to try to make the investments in education and in infrastructure, in research, the things that make a local economy go and the things that expand opportunity, not just for some of our children, but for all of our children.
And I would just say on that issue, add to what Senator Warren said, this is one of the many Achilles heels of this plan. There are 70 Republican congressmen who come from districts that this would dramatically affect. And it doesn't just affect 4 states like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and California. Every state is affected. One of the top 5 is Utah. 35% of all taxpayers will get hurt by removing state and local deductibility in Utah because they tithe. Chairman Hatch is not so keen on that, I don't think. And you go everywhere in the country, it's affected. We are telling and we are focusing on some of these Republican Congress members and telling them you're going to hurt your constituents badly, particularly in suburban, middle class, and upper middle class Republican districts, where the amount of money they are able to deduct far exceeds doubling the standard exemption. And by the way, the standard exemption, what they give with doubling it, they take away with eliminating the personal exemption.
Leader Schumer, can you address this news this morning that the president doesn't seem to be completely on board with this new plan by Senators Alexander and Murray? And is this dead even before we get out of the starting gate?
Well, you know, the president ought to make up his mind. He keeps changing his mind on issue after issue, and that shows an appalling lack of leadership. Now, he said today it would benefit the insurance companies. He ought to read the bill before he tweets. It benefits families that are struggling to afford health care, because in the proposal that Senators Alexander and Murray said, they eliminate the ability of the insurance companies to take this money, and rather it has to go to individuals, someone who needs medicine desperately because their child is sick, somebody who needs to go to a hospital for a scan because they might have cancer. So, A, he ought to read the bill before he tweets. B, he ought to make up his mind. Yesterday, he said it was a great proposal. Today, he says it's not good. And one more thing about this president. He's got to learn that if he is going to just be so afraid of the right wing whenever they bark, he runs away, he's not going to be able to govern. He did it on health care. He did it on this proposal. He did it on the Dreamers. The hard right is so far away from where America is that you can't govern by bowing obeisance to the hard right. But that's what he's doing, and it's making him the obstructionist here. One of probably the number one reason we don't do things is not, frankly, Mitch McConnell and not the Democrats, but the president cannot make up his mind how he feels on any issue.
Yeah, some of your colleagues are meeting with the president about tax reform, and the White House is hoping that they can maybe court a few Democrats. What are you doing to dissuade those kind of swing state, red state?
Well, 45 of the 48 Democrats signed a letter that said we will not support a tax bill that reduces taxes on the 1%, this bill does, that blows a hole in the deficit, this bill does, and that works through reconciliation, knocking Democrats out of having any say, this bill does. Even the 3 who did not sign the letter, who've been courted by the White House, have agreed with the principles in the letter. So, again, it's going to be like health care. They're going to make themselves, by trying to do a tax bill that comes from the hard right that benefits the Betsy DeVosses, the cabinet, and other billionaires, they're going to let every single Republican member hold them up, and the bill will collapse. Any more? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Neera, great job.
All right.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Thank you.